Welcome to week 2 of our May Mental Health Awareness Month 2025. This week we're talking about navigating stress. For those of you who did not join us last week we talked a little bit about some mental health basics, what some of the statistics are about mental health, what mental health is, what it is not, and we talked a little bit about some resources as well. So if that's something that interests you, that video is still available to watch. And again, today we're going to talk about navigating stress. If you're watching any of these videos and you participate in Health Quest, feel free to make sure that you get your health promotion points. You get 10 points for every video that you watch, so make sure to get credit for that. And for those of you who aren't a part of Health Quest, thank you for being here, and I hope that you find this information helpful as well. Again, for those who didn't join us last week, my name is Rachel. I am your company's Health Quest representative. And not only do I work for Health Quest and help create the wellness program for your company, but also I'm a mental health professional and I practice in the state of Texas. So I appreciate you being here. This is a passion of mine, and I look forward to sharing with you some tips on navigating stress, because let's face it, we're all a little bit stressed out, and that's okay because we're human. But before we get started, I want to say I'm going to ask you to write some things down for yourself today. So grab a paper and a pen or a pencil, something to write on and something to write with, and be prepared to push pause so that you can write down a few things and a few thoughts for yourself. Again, stress is something we're all experiencing, so I hope that this is helpful for you, and let's dive in. So again, I hope you have something to write on and something to write with. If not, push pause and go get that now. Because the first thing that I want you to do is to think of, on a scale of 1 to 10, where is your stress right now? So 1 is you're on the beach, your toes are in the sand, the weather is perfect, you got a pina colada in your hand, and you have nothing on your calendar for the foreseeable future. 1 is perfection, right? 10 is your life is falling apart and you have nowhere to go and your house is burning down, like this dog in the picture. So I can imagine we're all somewhere on that spectrum, right? I don't know if I've ever truly met someone at a true 1. Even if I'm on the beach, I'm still thinking about like, okay, how am I getting home? I don't know if I'm ever truly at a 1, but if you are, more power to you. Something tells me if you're watching this video, you might be closer to a 10 than you are to a 1. But again, everybody's stressed, so no judgment there. We're all there. So yes, think about where you're at on a scale of 1 to 10. And I want you to think about what are your biggest stressors right now as well. And I want you to write down 5. What are your 5 most pressing stressors? And I have some examples here. So really common stressors might be finances, personal relationships, whether it's marriage or family dynamics, or friendships even, workload, a lack of time, just feeling like 24 hours in a day is not enough, health issues, life changes. Maybe you're moving, maybe you're going through a relationship change, maybe your children are going through life changes, parenting. Do you have kids in sports? Oh my gosh, kids in sports. Wow, they take it so seriously these days, don't they? But their stress is our stress. So, and then daily tasks, just the day-to-day. Is my house clean? Am I doing enough for this person or that person? There's always something. So again, as I've been talking, I hope you've been thinking. If you need a little bit more time, again, stop the video and think about what are your top 5 stressors. If you have more than 5, that's okay too. But my goal is to help give you tools to feel more in control of your stress. And we're going to take a little bit different of an approach on this, because I think a lot of times when we talk about stress, we're like, well, just add some more self-care to your routine, which don't worry, we'll have a self-care seminar at the end of the month. We'll make sure that's week 4, because that's always fun and light and happy to talk about. But my goal is to help change the way you think about your stressors today so that you can come at it with renewed energy and put your energy where it's the most effective. That's my goal, to give you thinking tips for this. So self-care will wait for another week. Okay, so what are some of the effects of stress over time? So as you might already know, when you are experiencing stress, your body goes into fight or flight, and you have adrenaline coursing through your body, you have cortisol coursing through your body, And the function of these hormones is to give your body the functions that it needs to combat a threat, and it slows down the functions that your body doesn't need, which is exactly what your body is meant to do. However, your body isn't meant to stay in this fight or flight state long term, because in the long term, it leads to chronic issues. So things like poor eating habits, fatigue, irritability, trouble sleeping, chronic headaches, chronic muscle pain, substance use, burnout, poor heart health, weakened immune system, social isolation, procrastination, digestive issues. That's a lot. It's a lot. So stress is really important. And again, if you joined us last week, we touched a little bit on how culturally we're so into saying, all right, we'll just pull yourself up by your bootstraps and exercise a little bit more willpower and just do better. But it really is a difficult thing to navigate when we're stressed and don't know where to go and don't know what to do. So to think about this, again, like I said, we're not going to focus on self-care. Self-care is a part of our topic today, but instead we're going to talk a little bit about where are we putting our energy. And to illustrate this, I want to show you this, this target that's at the center of the screen here. This target is going to help you determine what's within your control, what's within your influence, and what's outside of your influence, outside of your control, that you just kind of need to accept and find ways to be at peace with. And being able to recognize what falls in each of these categories is truly key to managing your stress and feeling like you have a grip on the things that might feel a little bit out of control right now. So if you still have a paper, great, because while we're talking about this, we're going to start identifying certain things that are within your control, within your influence, and what you need to accept. So if you want to draw this target onto your paper, and as we're talking and you're thinking about the things that are stressing you out right now, start making lists of what's within each of these categories. So for example, if finances are within your category, you might not have control over how much your property taxes are this year, but you do, so you have to kind of accept that, but you do have a control over how many subscriptions you have, right? So you can start to kind of see what's within your control and what's without your control. And we'll talk more about it and hopefully give you some more ideas as we go. But just some quick examples. So things that are outside of our control might be world events, politics, economy, the weather, workload. Things within your control or within your influence are relationship factors, the culture of your home, the culture of your company, the effort that you put into projects and outcomes that come from your efforts. Your overall health and well-being might not totally be within your control, but definitely within your influence based on how you take care of yourself. And then what's within your control are things like your thoughts, your feelings, your behaviors. And again, if we really zero in on what we have control over, we can feel much more empowered to address things that are going to make a real difference in our life. Because I think a lot of stress is just feeling like we can't do anything about these things. So we'll talk more about this today. And again, fill in each of those as you see fit. So coming back to this, what can you control? Like I said before, you control your thoughts, your actions, how you respond to stress, how you manage your free time, your attitude towards situations, and how you take care of yourself. The amount of enthusiasm you put into things, the amount of effort you put into things. Those are things that you have control over. So to illustrate this, I want to show you guys this concept from psychology, which is called the cognitive triangle. So this triangle helps us to identify how our thoughts impact our feelings, which impact our behaviors, which in turn impact our thoughts, which in turn impact our feelings, which in turn affect our behaviors. So let me give you an example of this. One of the things that is a common stressor is the commute to work, right? Oh my gosh, we're caught in traffic. The traffic is so bad. There's a car accident and now we're 15 minutes late. That is something outside of our control. However, what do we have control over in this situation? Can we listen to music that helps us to stay calm? Can we do breathing exercises? Can we notify people that we're kind of out, that we're running late so that people aren't waiting for us without, knowing that we're late? What do we have control over? Now, imagine, to illustrate this cognitive triangle, imagine that you are running late, the traffic finally starts going, and somebody cuts you off super bad. What is the first thought that you have about that person? Maybe, I don't know about you, but my first thought would be, gosh, that guy's such a jerk. Why didn't he wait his turn? Sorry, yes, I would probably have that thought. But so you have that initial thought, which influences your feeling in that situation. So the emotion that might come after having that thought is anger. Um, yeah, probably anger. That's probably a pretty good feeling. Frustration might be another version of this. Um, Exasperation, that's something that comes to mind. But then what behavior do you exhibit? Do you honk at the person? Do you flip the person off? Do you start yelling? Do you tailgate that person for the next 20 minutes? So then you exert some sort of behavior. And does that make it better, or does that kind of continue this cycle? So maybe you flip the person off and you honk at them and they honk back at you. Now you're going to have another thought. Now your thought's going to be, hey, why are they honking at me? They're the ones who cut me off. And then you have another feeling, maybe more anger. Maybe that's when you start tailgating the person. And you can see how this cognitive triangle just keeps going around and around in circle. So where you have control over it is being able to identify when you're feeling these things or acting in this behavior, identifying the thought that's creating the feeling that's creating the behavior. Identifying the thought is the easiest place to slip something else in there, to recreate that thought, to reform the thought into something that is productive and protective rather than damaging. So for example, you don't have to do a complete opposite thought. Example, when the guy cuts you off, you don't have to think, oh, I'm so glad that he cut me off. What a great, nice thing to do. No, that would be fake. That wouldn't really work in this situation. But instead of thinking, what a jerk, how dare he, you can just think something along the lines of, well, I'm really glad that that guy didn't hit me just now. And then maybe instead of anger, you're going to feel a little bit of relief and a little bit of gratitude that, it could have been worse. Um, or another feeling could be, or another thought could be, I didn't appreciate that he did that, but it's not worth the energy of getting into it. And that could create a feeling of calmness or perspective, just having a higher perspective, right? And your behaviors are going to be different. So if you find yourself acting in such a way that you don't want to act, it's not representative of your values, question your thought and ask yourself, how are my thoughts affecting this behavior? And how can I change how I'm thinking about this situation so that my behavior is also different? Because a lot of times we're our own worst enemies with the behavior. Another thing could be procrastinating, right? We have thoughts about a big project that's coming up, and oh my gosh, there's so much pressure, and the due date is in 2 days, and the feeling could be panic, and the behavior could be procrastinating a little bit more. So the thought that we could change it to could be, I have 2 whole days to do this and I want to do my best, so let's get started now. And the feeling the feeling that comes from that is different than the feeling of, oh no, what am I going to do? I'm going to fail. So anyway, think about your thoughts, question your thoughts. Always ask yourself, how am I thinking about this situation and can I think about it differently? Now, another thing that you have control over is how you use your time. And this is specifically how you use your free time. So whether you only have 5 minutes of downtime or you get a whole hour a day or maybe even more on the weekends, I like to say that it's more about the quality of time that you're spending than the quantity of time that you're spending. So here's how to make the most of your free time. First of all, single tasking. So instead of multitasking when we have free time or downtime, try just doing one thing at a time so that you're really focused on that one thing. If you're eating a meal, don't be looking at your phone, but just enjoy the meal for everything that it is. The next tip is to connect with your physical experience through the senses. So if you're going for a walk in your free time, instead of, scrolling on TikTok while you're going for a walk, maybe connect with what you're seeing and what you're smelling and what you're feeling when you're outside. Connect with all of your senses while you're doing this thing that's supposed to be helping your self-care. Create rituals in your day to day. Wake up 5 minutes earlier so you can drink your cup of coffee on the porch, or take 5 minutes at the end of the day to have a relaxing shower and then write down 5 things that you are appreciated or are grateful for in the day. But creating rituals give you something to look forward to and create a sense of well-being for people. Focus on the present. So don't focus on the past. Don't focus on all the emails in your inbox, but be truly there where you are and focus on the present. Speak kindly to yourself. And this comes back to the thoughts and the feelings and the behaviors, right? A lot of times, the most damaging thoughts that we have about situations are how hard we are on ourselves, how we're not meeting our own expectations, how we're comparing ourselves to others. But speak more kindly to yourself so that you're using your time and you're using your thoughts wisely. And then connect with your values. So in your free time, are you making the most of it by making this valued time? So if you are scrolling on social media in your free time, I think that's great. Whatever we got to do to get through the day, right? But if you find yourself feeling really burnt out even after scrolling, maybe ask yourself, what's something a little more valuable that I can do with my time? Am I doing what I value most? Do I value my spirituality? Do I need to cultivate a spiritual relationship more? Do I value my family and my friends? Do I need to make sure I'm carving out time for the people that matter to me? And oftentimes that will help reduce burnout more often if instead of just wasting time, we're spending valuable time. Okay, so what can we influence? Things within our influence include the quality of our relationships, our interactions with others, our company or our family culture, our overall health, and the outcomes from our effort. So remember, influence, you have a little bit of control over it, but it still involves other people, and so you don't have complete control over it. However, how you approach a situation, your attitude, your thoughts can greatly impact the quality of these relationships. So these are kind of more relational things. You influence relational things around you. And one really big thing is how to communicate with people you are in conflict with. Oh my goodness, conflict at work, conflict in your marriage. There can be so many different conflicts that we're having interpersonally that are creating stress in our lives. And we just don't know how to, they should teach this in school, how to have difficult conversations, and they don't because it's just so difficult. But here are a few tips for how you can influence conflict. And I want to remind you with these tips that you do not have control over other people's behaviors or thoughts or actions. It is their responsibility to manage their reactions to what you say, and your responsibility lies within your actions and your emotional responses, right? So again, if we're focusing on what we have control over, we make the most out of a situation. And while the conflict might not turn out perfectly, it might not yield the results that we wanted, it's better than going at it in a defensive or really offensive way, right? So these are a few tips, and it might not make every conversation perfect, but it ensures you're doing your part to make it a productive conversation. So first, focus on what you can observe. Oh, and I'm going to pick a situation that might be helpful. So maybe you're having conflict with someone at work who's not like pulling their end of their responsibilities, right? They're leaving work without doing everything that they needed to do, leaving more work for you, right? So first, focus on what you can observe. And I'll give you an example of this, and think of your own conflict in your mind as I'm going through this example. But so you're in conflict with someone at work, they give you more work, and by not doing their part. So what can you observe? Hey, buddy, old pal, I noticed that when you leave early, a lot of the responsibility ends up falling on me, and I just don't have the time to do that. Again, these aren't opinions. This isn't an opinion. This is an observable thing. The person is leaving early. There's more work to be done that ends up landing on you. These aren't opinions. These are observable facts, right? If you say, hey, I think you're kind of lazy, and I really don't appreciate the way that you disrespect me, those are not observable. Those are opinions, right? So focus on what's observable. What are the facts of the situation? And then the second tip is to use I statements. So again, instead of saying, hey, you're super lazy, hey, you're irresponsible, and I don't like you, use I statements, how it affects you. So I feel like I need more support. I feel like I'm falling behind on my work because I'm picking up after some responsibilities that are left undone. I feel like I need more effort from you. Using I statements, coming back to how it affects you instead of pointing the finger at them. Next, work on hearing to understand and not to respond. So often when we're talking to someone that we're in conflict with, we're thinking about what we're going to say next to win the fight. But the goal of the conflict, and oftentimes we're in conflict with someone because this is an important relationship. If it wasn't important to us, then we're not even going to bring it up, right? But maybe it's a family member or maybe it's a work relationship, but it's an important relationship that affects your life. So it's important to you. So the solution is always the goal. So if you are hearing to understand the person, respond, and not to just respond to them and win the fight, then you're working towards a solution with that person. You're working to hear them. So again, it's your responsibility to hear and understand that person. And they might not do you the same favor. And I'm sorry to say that. And that's something that is outside of our control that we have to learn to accept and continue to do our part in conflict. Number 4, work towards a solution, and stay on task. Don't start airing out past grievances of X, Y, or Z. Remember what the focus is, and the focus is working as a team and finding a solution that works best for everyone. So kind of doing a solution-oriented attitude rather than, a winning and me versus them attitude. And then last, if you need a timeout, take a time out from the conversation. If you feel yourself unable to stay on task, if you find yourself getting angry and starting to act in a way that you don't want to be acting because you know it's making the situation worse, feel free to say, hey, I think we need to take a break. I can see that we're both getting escalated here emotionally. So let's take a break and come back in an hour and revisit this. If you do take a time out, make sure you set a time limit to come back together to talk about it. So that person doesn't think that you're just walking away from the situation, but there's some accountability there as well. But always, always take a time out. I think a lot of people think that they can't stop talking until a situation is resolved. No, take a time out so that you don't say anything that you're going to regret. Okay, now last, this is the hardest one. What is outside of your circle of influence? And the hardest thing about this is that these are the things that really, really affect us. World events, the economy, the weather, our workload, politics, and how other people think and feel and behave. These things really affect us, and it's really hard to be able to say, hey, that's outside of my circle of influence. That's outside of my control. But then there's also a lot of power and a lot of perspective that comes from being able to recognize what is without our control. So just like at this image, there is a huge blue ball on this side. This is the world event, right? And these white balls that balance it all out are the things that are within our control. So where are you focusing your energy? Focus on your thoughts, focus on your attitudes, your behaviors, and you can still feel in balance even if the world is kind of a crazy place, which it is often. So a few tips about focusing your energy and finding the acceptance of things that we can't control. And I'm going to give you these tips. If they resonate with you, they resonate with you. And if they don't, let them go. Because some people, this is really going to stick with them. And some people are going to say, that's a load of crap. And so, but I want to be able to give these tips for those that need to hear it. So just a few tips. First of all, observing situations without judgment can be really empowering. And what I mean by that is the person who cut you off in traffic, you can observe that they cut you off without assigning judgment to that person, without saying, wow, that person's a bad person for doing this. And it removes a lot of the emotion. And so if you can practice recognizing when you're assigning judgment to situations or people or things, then you can start consciously and intentionally setting aside and separating the person from the judgment that you've assigned to them. So that's a huge part of focusing your energy. Second tip, don't fight or get angry about things that you cannot control. So a really good example for this is politics. They're such a touchy subject and we just want people to agree with us and we have such strong opinions and we can get so angry when someone seems so different than us and has different opinions than us. But fighting and getting angry does not change anyone's mind and it's outside of our control. And so for us, finding a different way to approach how we address that rather than fighting and getting angry might be the key to, helping what we do have influence over. Next, don't try to change people, accept their actions as they are. A good example of this might be if you have a high conflict family member, someone outside of your immediate family, whether it's a parent or a cousin or even a friend who kind of doesn't treat you very well. Accept that their behaviors are a part of who they are. It's showing you who they are and what they value, and you need to accept those people. And there's a lot of freedom that comes from that, from being able to say, hey, that's just who you are, and I'm going to decide how I respond to you based off of that. There's a lot of freedom that comes from that. Okay, next, and this one's kind of out there, but if you have ears to hear it, I hope you can hear it. The current situation that you're in is a result of all that has happened in the past. The current situation that you're in is a result of all that has happened in the past. Now listen to this. The past cannot be changed. The only thing that you can change is the present. So again, this won't apply to everyone, but I hope there's someone out here who can hear that and really sit with that. The only thing that can change is the present. Not even the future can be changed. The only thing that we have control over right now is the present. So be here, be present. Don't beat yourself up for the past. Don't wish that things were different. Be where you are right now. And again, there's so much power in that, in focusing your energy on the present. Last, if you find yourself putting a lot of energy into what you can't control, that's a good reminder to take a deep breath and put your energy over what's in your control. I hope that this was helpful. Thank you for taking the time today. Again, don't forget the different circles of influence. If you haven't had time to identify what's within your control, do it now, right? So write those things down, pause this video if you have to, and anytime that you're feeling stressed, come back to the circle and think, okay, what can I do about this, and what do I need to let go of? Next week, we are going to be talking about helping loved ones who might be struggling. I'm going to warn you, it might be kind of a serious topic. I know that each of us knows someone who struggles with mental health issues, and next week we're going to be talking about resources that are available, how to have these difficult conversations with someone who's struggling, how to know if someone is struggling, might need help, and yeah, again, how to have these conversations, and also how to take care of you if you know someone who's struggling and love someone who's struggling. So please tune in to that if you feel like it's applicable. And again, if you're part of Health Quest, don't forget to get credit for watching today's video. This was a long one. I appreciate you hanging in there with me, and we will see you next week. In the meantime, be well.